How are you? I'm feeling pretty good today. I saw two by-elections last night, one in Manitoba, one in Quebec. In Manitoba, the Liberal Party, which is in government, Justin Trudeau, got around 5% of the vote. Single digits. That's like fringe party status. Just incredible. I mean, it was always an NDP stronghold. The Liberals were never particularly strong there. But my God, that's got to scare any Liberal MP in the West. And Montreal was in its own way more astonishing. See, that seat in Manitoba, it had been an NDP seat for decades, actually, but the one in Montreal was about as heartland for the Liberals as it comes. It would be like Calgary in the Reform Party or the Conservative Party history. Montreal, that is where the Liberals are. The riding was called Le Salamar-Verdun. In the past, it was called the Salamar. That was Paul Martin's riding when he was finance minister and the prime minister. Then it was David Lamette's riding. He's the disgraced former justice minister. These are the kings, the titans of the Liberal Party, and this was the safest seat possible. Incredibly, the Liberals were run out of the district. I say run out of the district because I was thinking of what the Liberal candidate herself did last night. She gave a speech and then she ran out of the room, never to return. I mean, she hadn't formally lost yet, but it was going so poorly. She said a few things and then she ran out. Here's the CBC trying to come to terms with that.
We're all trying to figure out why Laura Palestini gave that speech when she gave that speech. You got any insight? What's the vibe and the reaction at the headquarters after that?
Well, David, I could tell you one thing. As much as she was energetic in her speech, she was also energetic in leaving the party. She immediately left as soon as she gave that speech. She did a few steps saying thank you to the volunteers, turned around, went out the door, and of course we followed her. Thought maybe she was just getting some fresh air. No, she got in and drove away.
Now, early in the night, the NDP were doing very well. In fact, it was sort of a three-way race. The Bloc Québécois, who finally won, the Liberals, and the NDP. They did well as the explicitly pro-Hamas party. They had a pamphlet. Their candidate had a pamphlet talking about Gaza, and the only flag on it was not the Canadian flag, not the Quebec fleur-de-lis, but rather the Palestinian flag. And he did very well. And you might recall that some Muslims in the Liberal Party had a boycott on the Liberal campaign, saying they weren't going to help Justin Trudeau because he wasn't pro-Hamas enough. This is shades of what we saw in the United Kingdom in July. They had their parliamentary elections on July 4th, you might recall. And whereas 5 Reform Party MPs, including Nigel Farage, were elected on the right, well, 5 pro-Hamas MPs were elected on the hard left. 4 of them were Muslim themselves, and the 5th was Jeremy Corbyn, a hardline anti-Israel I'd call them pro-terrorists, really. And they ran on a Gaza platform. Remember some of the victory speeches by those guys in the UK? Terrifying.
Go home, find every brand and every product that has been supporting Israel and Zionism from the beginning of time and throw it away. Throw it away. Put the list on your fridge. Tell your children when you go to the shop to buy sweets, do not buy this and do not buy that. That is the least we can do. We have been complicit indirectly for too long by electing these Zionists, these unjust leaders.
Well, we were only a couple thousand votes away from that happening in Canada, and don't think that won't happen one day. So a disastrous night for the Liberals. And I say again, I mean, 9 years or more into a party's mandate, by-elections are going to be a way for people to express their dislike with the incumbent. It's not that surprising that in the dying days of a regime, people use by-elections to punish them. But the depth of the hatred for the Liberal Party is something we haven't seen before. Justin Trudeau lives in his own world, though. I really believe that he follows his father's mantra. I don't know if you remember, but Pierre Elliott Trudeau, his dad once said, MPs are nobody 100 yards off Parliament Hill. They're nobodies. And I hate to say that's right. There's 338 MPs. How many of them would you recognize if you bumped into them? The answer is pretty few, because Parliament itself has fewer and fewer powers as it's all absorbed by the PMO. There's a couple of cabinet ministers who are good for show and tell, but the number of people who actually make decisions is very small. And most of them are not MPs. So you're a regular MP. You're going to be terrified by what you saw last night. And if you remember when Justin Trudeau was accosted on the beach by our alumnus, Cian Bexty, Bexty said, "Are you avoiding your MPs?" And I think Trudeau very much is terrified of his MPs. I mean, imagine what they had to say to him when he saw them yesterday, but that was before the election result today. Here's Trudeau walking into Parliament yesterday. He had someone film him like he was very confident and strong, but look at the stress on his face. Look at that forced grin. Even a trained thespian and dramatic actor, a high school drama teacher, substitute drama teacher like him, even he couldn't quite hide the stress and anxiety. Even though he doesn't care about his MPs, they do control his future. They could, if they wanted to, band together and boot him out. Look at him make his entrance with his personal videographer yesterday. Look at his face. Take a look.
Ready? Good to see you. Jimmy. How are you doing? Good stuff. Merci. Let's go.
Yeah, it's not going well there. They really are down to the palace guard. Trudeau sounds like, I don't know if you remember during the Iraq War when the head of PR was talking about the mother of all battles, and we were, I don't know if you remember, but Saddam Hussein's spokesman, even as the tanks were closing in on Baghdad, was talking about how they were going to beat the great Satan and the little Satan. That's what the Liberals sound like now, just, oh, we're confident, and oh, Canadians are truly with us. I think that they're lashing out, the Liberals, and they've been doing so for a fair bit. Here's a story I should have mentioned when it happened a week or two ago. Talib Nur Mohammed is a member of Parliament of no account. He's one of these nobodies that you wouldn't recognize, other than he was famous for buying a house and flipping it, buying a house and flipping it, buying it and flipping, buying and flipping, which of course distorts the market, makes it hard for people who want to buy a house to live in. He's a speculator, he's a profiteer. He was who the Liberal Party chose to run in Vancouver, and I think that's a slap in the face to people trying to find affordable housing in one of the most expensive cities. But he's someone of no account. He is sort of the deputy to the heritage minister, so he has some say over a program that's very important to the Liberals, which is subsidies to journalists. In fact, they just recently increased the subsidies that the Trudeau government will pay to journalists. Now, I think it's about $30,000. It works out to $30,000 per journalist in the program, which is pretty much half their pay. And Talib Nur Mohammed was getting very frustrated that the media weren't as loving as they should be. He responded to a criticism online by a journalist. And this journalist is with Post Media. The journalist didn't really say anything that interesting, just was criticizing Mark Miller on something. Like, it didn't even mention Talib Nur Mohammed. But here's what Talib Nur Mohammed, the Liberal, said in return. Your paper wouldn't be in business were it not for the subsidies that the government that you hate put in place. The same subsidies your Trump-adjacent foreign hedge fund owners gladly take to pay your salary. Holy cow. Does he have some anger issues? Trump-adjacent, foreign. He's so furious. And, of course, he doesn't like money. He's very much against rich people owning newspaper companies. He's all for using, flipping houses to make a quick buck, but he's very mad, and he's basically telling a journalist, I'm your boss, know your place, and you'd be nothing if it weren't for my largesse. That's really what he's saying. There really isn't any other way to interpret his message. Absolutely atrocious. A threat. I mean, why don't you just add on and be careful we don't audit you at the CRA? I mean, why not do that, since you're throwing your weight around? What was the most incredible thing was not that this was an attack on a journalist with a threat. That's sort of known. That's sort of what the whole subsidy program is about. I like to say that the CBC is owned by the government, but the newspaper journalists are just rented by them. And it's worse to be rented because, of course, you have to keep proving that you're worth the subsidy. At the CBC, someone like that post-media journalist would just be fired, though. Anyways, the worst part of it was that the rest of the media was completely silent about it. They were fine with it. The Canadian Association of Journalists didn't say a word about this outrageous threat. The Canadian Journalists for Free Expression, PEN Canada, none of them had a word to say because, yeah, they absolutely agree when you know, whoever pays the piper calls the tune.
It's the news event of the year. Canada's most controversial premier sits down with Canada's most controversial journalist, and everything is on the table. Come watch Ezra Levant one-on-one with Alberta Premier Danielle Smith in front of a live studio audience in Calgary. Nothing's off limits. Nothing's held back. Questions that would make Justin Trudeau invoke martial law. Answers that will make Stephen Guilbeault pee his pants. You're not going to want to miss this one. But you have to be there, in person, at the Rebel News Live mega conference in Calgary on October the 5th. Tickets are limited, so drop everything and go to rebelnewslive.com right now. Special discounted prices for Patriots and special extra high prices if you're with the CBC. Go to rebelnewslive.com now.